The magic island of Euclidia may be a grand place for G47 and his scientists, but the Gregory yacht party are not enjoying it much. When Mrs. Patricia Gregory with Captain Tex Bradford and young Jerry Hall sailed from Los Angeles in search of Joan Gregory, Mrs. Gregory's long-lost daughter, they had many thrilling adventures and once made their escape from the scientists on Euclidia. Their freedom lasted only a few hours, however, and once again they are prisoners, held in the 9th level of the artificial island. Jerry and Joan have gone on a tour of that level, looking for some means of escape, and Patricia and Tex have followed them. Now, both searching parties are apparently hopelessly lost, as the last time we saw them, Jerry and Joan were locked in one steel room, and the captain and Mrs. Gregory in another, where we find them now.
Oh, it's no use, Tex. We're locked in this room to stay.
Sure looks like it, Pat, but why?
Well, we're prisoners, of course.
Yes, but why should this one room close up automatically as soon as we get in it?
I'm not convinced Joan was right about the scientists all giving their attention to something else. I think we've been watched all the time, and this room is a handy place to keep us until G47 is ready to do what he sees fit to do with us.
You may be right. One thing is sure. There's no sense in wearing out our hands trying to push these steel doors open.
Look, Tex, how beautifully polished this steel is. These doors are perfect mirrors.
Mirrors? Uh-huh, that's it.
What's what?
These panels are mirrors. Mirrors of polished steel.
Yes, but
Well,
what?
don't you see, Pat? They're not doors at all.
Not doors?
No.
But they must be. They all look exactly alike.
Yeah, they look alike, but they aren't. Don't you see it? They really are mirrors. And with the exception of one panel, which is actually a door, the rest of them are only reflections.
Then we've been pounding on sections of the wall?
Sure we have. We got excited and lost our heads for a minute. Now all we have to do is to go slow. Try each of these doors, or rather panels, until we find the one that's a real door, and we can open it just as easy as we did when we came in.
It's worth trying, at least.
Yes, and we'll take no chances on getting mixed up this time. I've got a heavy black pencil here. We'll make a mark on each panel we try, and we won't be doing all that over again.
All right, well, we'll start with this one. No, it isn't here. I'm sure of that.
Okay, then I'll make a big cross on it, and we'll know what... That's funny.
Have you anything to sharpen the pencil with?
Well, it's sharp enough.
But it didn't leave any mark on the door, Tex.
Watch it now while I try it again.
Tex, did you see that?
Yes, it did make a mark. But within a fraction of a second, almost instantly, the mark faded out.
I don't like this. Everything we come in contact with smacks of the supernatural.
Well, it is a little nerve-wracking, but there's nothing supernatural about it.
Well, that pencil mark disappearing so quickly certainly is...
Some sort of paint they've treated these doors with, I think. Nothing to be afraid of. But it sure wrecks my idea about marking the panels.
Then what are we to do?
Well, let's see. Supposing we stand still and count all the panels in the room. Then count them as we go around. That should do it.
What was that, Tex?
Sounded like something heavy struck the roof of this room.
There it is again.
As if a large magnet. Pat, do you feel this room moving?
Yes, Tex. Why, it's rising, isn't it?
I'll say it's rising. This thing acts like an elevator.
It must be an elevator. Jerry and Joan described the sound of those giant magnets when they rode in one of these elevators.
That must be another level we've just passed. The 8th, if Joan was right about ourselves being on the 9th.
But this can't be a regular elevator.
Sure acts like one to me.
But the size of it, Tex, as large as the living room in my home.
They don't seem to care how big anything is around this island. If they want it moved, it moves.
That must have been the 7th floor.
Well, I'm glad we're going up. I'll feel better when we're near the surface of this island.
It isn't very pleasant being locked up 90 feet below the surface of the ocean. But what if we're leaving Jerry and Joan down there?
No use worrying about that now, Pat. We can't control this. We may be getting into a position to help them as well as ourselves.
Yes, and that was the 6th level. And these levels are 10 feet in height. We're moving much slower than in an ordinary elevator.
And this steel room must weigh as much as a half a dozen ordinary elevators.
Of course. I wonder what we'll find at the surface.
Probably a reception by someone who doesn't like us very well.
And Jerry and Joan?
We'll have to wait and see.
That was the 5th floor.
You mean this is the 5th floor? We're still here.
Why, so we are. We've stopped moving.
This must be as far as we're going. Look, Pat, that door is opening.
Then we did try the right one.
Opens easy enough when you know how.
But who's opening it, Tex?
No one. That whole ride of ours was automatically controlled, I believe. Something tells me we ought to get out of this elevator while we have a chance. Might decide to go down again.
Very well, Tex, if you think it's wise.
I think it's just as wise to get out here as it is to allow ourselves to be taken down to that 9th floor again.
We didn't get out any too soon.
Looks that way.
It sounded as if it went up.
We might have stayed on it and reached the top of the island.
I think we'll have a great deal more opportunity to look around here unmolested than we would have on the surface.
No doubt of that. Let's start looking. Same thing here we had down below. Halls and halls full of shining steel doors. We don't know where any of them go.
Joan said all elevator doors open toward the outer rim of the island. And if that's the case, we should be working toward the outside by going straight ahead.
Right. We'll begin with this door in front of us. Well, we got that far anyway. What now?
Well, I'd say straight ahead again, Tex.
You're guessing all right so far. Come on, let's go.
That's a queer-looking thing, Tex. Do you know what it is?
I think it's the nose of one of the Euclidean submarines. Yep, that's what it is. We're in one of the submarine locks. That's the opening in the nose of the sub.
Well, there doesn't seem to be anyone around. Would it be safe to look into the submarine?
Why not? They might as well find us looking at that as at anything else on this island.
Tex, there's someone in that submarine.
Are you sure?
Yes, way back in the stern. I can see a shadow moving around.
Can you see how many people there are?
No. Why?
I have one of the ray guns Joan got for us. I'd be tempted to argue with him if there weren't too many in there.
It might work. Joan said the Euclideans never put more than 2 people on those subs under ordinary conditions.
Hey, Mrs. Gregory, Captain Bradford.
Pat, I thought I heard Jerry.
Yes, but keep your voice down. If we heard him, those people in the submarine must have heard him, too.
Mother, Captain, come in here quietly without speaking further.
Well, that was Joan,
Quiet,
Tex.
Pat, and do as she said. I'll give you a hand. We'll have to climb up into the nose of that sub. Come on, easy now.
I'll make it all right, Tex. Oh, Joan, dear, what on earth is
Quiet,
that?
Mother. Get back into the central portion of the ship at once.
What do I do, Joan?
Same as Mother. Hurry and quietly. Come here, Jerry. Quietly now.
Sure, I know.
Help me close this port. Gently.
Gently it is.
Now lock that breech.
Gotcha.
And now we can hurry back to Mother and the Captain in the central section.
Better be quiet about it.
There is no need for silence now. I have cut off all possible methods of communicating sound or motion to the island.
I can see that you're confident we may speak with safety now, Joan.
We may indeed, Mother.
Then tell us how you kids managed to get here and into this submarine.
It was not cleverness on our part.
I'll say it wasn't. Oh, boy. We got into a room all full of doors and couldn't get out.
Why, that's just exactly what happened to us, wasn't it, Tex?
Yes.
And the room then rose to this level.
And we found out we were in an elevator all the time.
That's exactly what we went through.
Yes.
Well, when we found the nose of this thing open all ready for us and nobody here, we came aboard.
And I had just completed testing the controls, and Jerry was to return to the 9th level in an attempt to bring you up here.
But you got here all by yourselves. So let's get underway.
What do you mean, underway?
Surely, Mother. You and the Captain sit back there where you will not interfere with the controls.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on, Joan. You're not going to try to steal this Euclidean submarine.
She's not going to do anything else but.
Oh, dear. Do you know how to operate it? Are you sure, Joan?
I believe so. I have watched the commander operate the ship many times.
Well, you've sure got your nerve, Joan. But if you'll steal it and think you can run it, we'll ride with you, won't we, Pat?
I should say we will.
Ready, Joan?
One moment, Jerry. That lever will release the mechanism which reverses the nose from that submarine lock. When I signal you, pull the lever well back.
Okay, kid. I'm ready.
Then pull.
Tex, turning over.
No, we're not. That's just the outer shell revolving.
But how can we see it?
The submarine is constructed of transparent steel.
Okay, Joan. The nose is clear. Now what?
I will have to perform this alone. The turn around will create too great a disturbance on Euclidia. I must run with reverse jets for a few miles.
Let her go.
Joan, we're going very fast to be running backwards, aren't we?
The speed is identical with the best forward speed. These submarines are reversible. We will soon attain the maximum speed of 48 knots.
48 knots? You mean this thing will make 48 knots an hour underwater?
It sure will. This is the fastest submarine on the island.
And it will operate at a depth of 1 mile, although not at that speed. But if we are pursued, I shall dive for the floor of one of the ocean canyons, and we will never be caught.
Never be caught. Joan, dear, you can't mean we're actually getting away from Euclidia.
To be sure, Mother.
But, Joan, isn't there some way G-47 and the scientists can overtake us or pull us back to the island?
Not a chance, Tex. This is the fastest submarine they've got, and their magnetic stuff won't work on their own boat.
Correct, Jerry. There is, to my knowledge, no possible way for us to be overtaken and returned to Euclidia.
Oh, Joan, it's wonderful. Well, I can just hardly believe this.
It must be true, though, Pat. We're sure leaving that place behind.
And I'm not doing any crying over it. That magic island is all right for the guys who run it, but I've had enough.
I, too, have had enough, Jerry. I will proceed at full speed.
There's nothing any finer than a taste of freedom after being shut up against your will. The Gregory party is now enjoying their second bit of freedom since landing at Euclidia, the magic island. When Jerry and Joan set out to do a little detective work in the lower levels of the island, they were only hoping, and rather faintly hoping at that they might possibly discover some weak link in the Euclideans' plans to keep them prisoners. They had more good luck than anyone expected and found one of the fast submarines with no one guarding it. Mrs. Gregory and the captain arrived at the same time, and with Joan at the controls, our four friends have helped themselves to the 100-foot submarine. They are now racing to get away from Euclidia and the power of G-47 and his scientists.
I believe we have now attained maximum speed. You may close that valve, Jerry.
Okay, Joan. Close it is.
How can you maintain your speed in this thing if you shut off the compressed air, Joan?
The air is not used as motive power, Captain Bradford. It merely forces the fuel pellets into the combustion tank.
But, Joan, darling, what makes this submarine go?
Did you not see that small cylinder Jerry inserted in that heavy projectile-shaped tank?
See here, Mrs. Gregory, one of these little things.
I see them, Jerry, but they're hardly larger than a golf ball.
They are quite large enough to propel this submersible ship for a distance of 25 miles at maximum speed.
But, Joan, 25 miles on one of these little capsules?
Approximately, Captain.
Oh, sure. There's enough of these little things here to take us to Los Angeles.
To Los Angeles?
Precisely, Mother. The first requirement when a submarine commander lands her boat at Euclidia is to refuel, and the minimum charge is for 5,000 miles.
5,000 miles? And we're only about 4,000 from home.
Then you mean... Oh, I can't even seem to say it. You mean we're actually away from that island with enough fuel to take us safely back to California?
I have stated the simple truth.
Well, it may be the truth, Joan, but it isn't so simple. How's our speed now?
We are making only 44 knots. There is some slight defect in the gas combustion apparatus.
Only 44 knots.
Yeah. Too bad we've got to crawl along at 44 miles an hour on the water. I'll bet the Navy would feel bad if their ships wouldn't do any better than this.
There is no Navy in the world with a submarine that will make any such speed, or even half of it, Jerry.
Oh, Jerry was only kidding you, Joan.
44 knots. 44 nautical miles an hour. Why, that's faster than our heavy surface craft can travel.
It is interesting to contemplate the advances which may be made after this system of propulsion has been perfected.
Yeah. Maybe they'll do all right after they've quit fooling around and really get these things to running.
Now, Jerry, if you'll let Joan be sensible for a few minutes, I'd like to ask her a few questions about the continued operation of this boat and learn something about how to navigate. This is my first submarine experience.
Okay, Tex. I'll keep still.
What is it you wish to know, Captain?
Well, you started this thing and you're keeping it running. So if you know how to do that, I'll leave it in your hands. But I'd like to be of some help to you. Thought it might be with the navigation.
Tex is one of the finest navigators in America, Joan.
That is interesting, but there is no need for your services at this time, Captain.
Looks like we're just going for the ride.
Sure looks that way, Jerry.
I believe we are now sufficiently removed from Euclidia that we may, with safety, reverse the craft.
Reverse? You mean we've been going backward all this time?
At 44 knots?
To be sure. I explained that when we left the island.
Don't you remember Joan saying that she didn't dare turn the sub around for fear it would make such a fuss in the water that the Euclideans might get wise?
Yes, I remember. But in the excitement of getting away, I'd forgotten it.
And we've been running full speed astern for the last 10 minutes?
Precisely.
I don't see why we can't feel that, Joan. I can't ride backwards on the train without feeling it.
On the train, you know you are riding backward, do you not?
Well, sure. But why?
I will give you the same sensation here if you desire it.
You'll give us a sensation?
How can you do anything about that, Joan? We've been steadily running backward, and I hadn't noticed it.
I will open the visibility slides in the sides of the submarine.
Hey, don't let that water in.
The water will not come through that transparent steel, and you should know that, Jerry.
Yeah, I did see it before.
How wonderfully clear those openings are. Everything in the water is as plain as day.
Yeah, now you can tell you're going backward all right. Seeing that marine life scooting by in the wrong direction could be mighty upsetting.
I think I'd just as soon go forward, Skipper.
I will now reverse the craft.
What, at this speed?
We will lose momentum gradually. I will cut off the power and run in a wide arc.
How could this thing be so noiseless all at once, Joan? We're still rushing through the water. Why don't we hear the water as we did before?
You did not at any time hear the rush of water around the ship, Captain Bradford. You heard the water passing through the power channels. That steel is not noiseless, as it is much more simple to check your power if you can hear it.
But the rest of this boat is made of noiseless steel.
Yes, Mother.
Boy, you sure see things when you go riding with these Euclideans.
I am no longer a Euclidean, Jerry.
Good for you, Joan.
Then you'd better remember that when we start to tell you how dumb they are in my world.
Joan will soon be of our world, Jerry.
That will make me very happy, Mother. In less than 80 hours, we will arrive in Los Angeles.
Golly whiskers.
I can't think of anything better than that to say, Jerry.
It's almost too much for me.
Hey, you sure take off fast.
We are in a hurry, are we not?
We're in a hurry to get away from Euclidia, yes. But, Joan, is this submarine safe at such speeds?
Euclidean machinery is nearly perfect. Speed has no effect on this craft.
Well, it sure has some effect on me. Are we doing full speed already?
The maximum will be attained in a few more seconds, Captain.
One thing nice about these things, they sure make up their minds plenty fast.
Joan, I don't mean to worry you with a lot of childish questions, but I'm interested in navigation. Now, how do you know where we're going?
Just what I'd like to know. These steel slides in the side of the ship are fine, but I can't see where they'd be any help in navigating.
Show them the gadgets, Joan.
Gadget?
Sure, the dingus. Thingamajig you navigate with.
There is nothing like that here, but I will show you how the instruments operate.
Oh, that'll do just as well.
Well, I don't see any instruments, at least not enough to run a submarine with.
We seem to be running all right, though.
Operation of this submarine is very simple. I will pull down the chart of our present course.
Our present course? Do you mean you've had this run charted in advance?
Of course not, Mother. That would be quite impossible as we had no advanced knowledge of the cruise.
Had you there, Pat.
Never mind, Mrs. Gregory. I feel just like you do about it. There's a nice straight line with Los Angeles marked on the north end of it. But how did it get there?
We haven't had any time to draw any pictures since we started.
This is one of our 16 basic or permanent charts, showing a true course from Euclidia to the 16 principal ports of the world.
And our course is a perfectly straight line?
Insofar as navigation is concerned, yes. Although we will naturally deflect to avoid striking any undersea mountains.
Hey, I hope we do.
Yes, but what are you steering this thing with?
It is not necessary to steer, as you term it. I have merely set this lever at the point marked Los Angeles, and in good time we will arrive at that destination.
But it's impossible to sail a straight course for that distance. We must surely run dangerously near islands and sunken reefs.
We will pass around them safely. The impulse deflectors will attend to that.
We'll go around these things like that, automatically?
To be sure.
Joan, you're sailing a submarine at over 40 miles an hour without being able to see where you're going?
I am constantly watching the seaway on our course, and all is clear for several miles in advance of this ship.
Where are you seeing all that?
In this reflector suspended before me. You may look over my shoulder if you wish.
Go ahead, Pat. Take a look.
Oh, I'd like to. Tex, you can see through the water almost as clearly as you could see on the surface.
Golly whiskers. You sure can.
Say, that's remarkable, Joan. How do they do it?
We utilize an electric ray of atomic principle. This ray is projected directly in advance of the submarine. Mineral salts are dissolved along the course of the beam from the ray, and the dissolving salts form a path of remarkable clarity through the water.
Well, that's nothing short of amazing.
And you'd never be bothered by fog.
Euclideans are not, as you say, bothered by fog under any conditions. This is only one of the many rays used under various conditions to control visibility.
Huh. And everybody thought I was crazy when I said we were going to visit a magic island.
There is no magic on Euclidia, Jerry.
Yeah, I know. Old G47 is always raving about everything on that island being nothing but scientific fact, which is all okay with me. But just the same, it's the kind of stuff that they call magic in my country.
I can understand how Jerry feels. When you see our world, Joan, and when you see how far we are behind Euclidia and all of our machines and inventions, you'll be able to understand why this seems like magic to us.
I will try to understand.
Do you realize that when this submarine plows into Los Angeles Harbor, that we'll be the most famous people in the world?
After this small cruise, Euclidean submarines have circled the globe without rising to the surface.
Oh, yeah? How do they carry enough fuel?
We have a great deal of space here that is not being utilized. It is possible to carry fuel for 50,000 miles.
Well, no matter what you think about this cruise, there's going to be a lot of excitement when we dock.
Tex, this boat is armed, isn't it?
My guess would be yes.
You bet, with a capital Y. They've got enough trick weapons on board this thing to capture more than Los Angeles.
Well, isn't that going to present something of a problem when we sail into the harbor? Entering a port with an armed vessel is something that takes a little preparation.
Well, I think we can square that, Pat. After all, the government must have an idea as to what we're up against.
But what can we do if they won't let us into the harbor?
It's not a question of getting into the harbor. We'd be in there before anybody could stop us. What I don't like is the idea that someone will spread the story all over the waterfront. We'll have our hair full of newspaper reporters and newsreel cameras before we can protect our secret.
You will not wish it known that a Euclidean submarine has brought you back to the United States?
Why, Tex?
A Euclidean must have agents in every country. They probably have instruments on the island strong enough to locate this submarine on the surface. They'd pick the news out of a dozen news broadcasts in an hour. I'd like to keep this quiet until I can get to the government agents. Take the proper steps to protect ourselves against the Euclideans, as well as to lay our plans about going back to take over that island.
But we'll have to come up somewhere, Tex. And if we don't come up in some harbor, well, we'll never reach land, and I don't see how it can be helped.
Can you offer anything, Joan?
That is a simple problem.
Maybe it is to you, but it looks plenty hard to me to pop up out in the ocean someplace, hide a submarine, and walk into the harbor.
Jerry may be sketching it rather broadly, Joan, but that's what we have to think about.
I will take care of that. When we reach a position within 5 miles of the harbor, we will submerge to the ocean floor. The submarine will remain there indefinitely, safely anchored, and we will proceed to the harbor with our life rings.
Sounds easy, but 5 miles is a long ways to swim. If we could get out of a submarine on the ocean floor and reach the surface alive.
Yeah, it's no sense to try to get from a sub to the surface.
With the equipment I will show you, it will be easy. Please have no fear of that. If we are allowed to reach the harbor, I promise you we will land without the submarine and without trouble.